We're getting closer to draft time, so this felt like a good time for me to put out my top 15 players in each position. I do have a handful of combo guards in both my point guard list as well as my shooting guard, so if somebody's missing, chances are they're going to be in a separate video. Also, I went to game one of the Thunder's second round last night, so my voice is a little messed up, so bear with that. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get started looking at my top 15 point guards. My number 15 point guard is Jadon Bradley. Jadon Bradley is still a pretty raw prospect, but he does a great job of keeping the ball moving. One of the things that really impresses me with him is how well he's able to relocate off the ball, whether that's through cutting after he passes or just relocating along the perimeter. I also think he has a lot of defensive upside. He's done a real good job, especially this past season at Arizona, by covering ball handlers at the point of attack, but I think his most promising swing skill on that side of the ball is his off-ball defense. I think he's a great team defender and could be selected, as more of an upside guard. And I think that he has a good chance to continue developing and eventually becoming a backup level point guard. My number 14 point guard is Judah Mintz. I think he's a really high ceiling, but also a really low floor type of prospect. He's really gifted offensively with awesome self-creation and has done a good job, especially this past season with shooting off the catch. I don't really buy his playmaking for others all that much at the next level, but if he's able to add a little bit of muscle, I think he could really surprise people with his effectiveness. But I do think that that's going to be a little bit slower of a prospect than you may like taking, but he's definitely got the potential to be a really good offensive player, especially. My number 13 prospect is Tristan Newton. Newton was super great this past season with UConn. He is quite a bit older than most prospects that I've covered so far, but the skill level is pretty undeniable. He can shoot it from anywhere on the court, whether that's catch and shoot attempts or creating looks for himself. I think the playmaking for others has been a little bit underrated. I think, he's a really well-rounded guard, especially on offense. But with that age, it's kind of a question about how much he's going to be able to improve at the next level. But regardless, I think he's at worst a solid end-of-the-bench type role player. And, a lot of guards have been able to make long careers through being that type of player. And I could really see Tristan Newton fitting into that same type of role going forward. My number 12 point guard is KJ Simpson. I think Simpson is a tremendous college player, and I think a lot of the things that he does, like cutting backdoor, moving off ball, and his ability to shoot from range, are definitely translatable, but I think physically his style of play may have a little bit of an issue translating to the NBA. And, scouting prospects, you're always going to be wrong about some people. And KJ Simpson's one of those players that I could absolutely see climbing up my board the closer we get to the draft. But for the time being, I just kind of have too many questions about how translatable his game is. But like I said, would not be surprised if I changed my mind about a lot of those things with the more film that I'm able to watch for him. My number 11 point guard is Reese Beakman. My big thing with Reese Beakman that I like so much is his defensive upside. He does a lot of good things on offense, like finishing at the rim and cutting through defenses off the dribble. But while he's on defense, it's just kind of pressure all the time. I've been really impressed with his aggressiveness. And, that's not always a great thing 100% of the time. But I think that throughout the season, he really improved on, the chances that he was taking. Early on, I did think he was a little bit reckless on that end, overcommits, things like that. But as he progressed throughout the season, I thought he kind of figured out how to be effective on defense better. And that's something that I think a lot of NBA teams really do value. And would not be surprised at all to see him get drafted, whether that be late first or throughout the second. But I'm a big fan and have a lot of faith in his game continuing to grow. My number 10 point guard is AJ Mitchell. AJ Mitchell has kind of jumped all over my board throughout the season. He does a lot of things super well. I think he has a pretty well-refined offensive game, both with shooting and attacking the rim. He does a really good job of creating his own looks from three, as well as finishing through contact towards the rim. I think my biggest concern is a lot of times throughout this season, he has taken plays off on the defensive end. And, this is something that can absolutely improve once you do make it to the NBA. But I think that could be a concern for teams. But regardless, I think he's absolutely a player worth taking a swing on. My number 9 point guard is Mark Sears. My favorite aspect of Mark Sears' games is footwork. He's really got that portion of his game figured out wherever he is on the court. While he is just 6'1", once he gets into the lane, he kind of starts using a little bit of post work. There is a pretty common correlation between him and Jalen Brunson, and I don't think he's really near that level of footwork or really just as a player in general, but he's super smart, has great feel for the game, can knock down shots from wherever, and especially in the NCAA tournament, I thought that he did a great job of kind of controlling Alabama's offense, and if he didn't have a good look for himself, he was more than happy to create one for an open teammate of his anywhere on the court with great vision and, like I mentioned, awesome feel for the game. My number 8 point guard is Tyion Grant Foster. This is a pretty intriguing prospect for me. He plays at Grand Canyon University, so he doesn't have just a ton of help around him. And I think that kind of contributes to him having such low assist numbers, but his ability to create off the dribble for himself and hit tough shots has really kind of blown me away at times. He's a really good athlete, and I think NBA teams would love to get him in as, a little bit of a raw prospect and shape him into what they'd like to see him become. Defensively, he does struggle at times staying completely engaged. He's really kind of struggled throughout this season fighting over screens to stay with his man. But like I said, I think NBA teams would be able to kind of help shape him out and figure out exactly the best way to get him affecting games. I buy the upside and would love to see him get a chance with a team willing to work with him through some of those aspects that'll need to improve. My number 7 point guard is Jamal Shed. Shed also is a little bit undersized, but I think he's really just kind of the epitome of the word dog. I see him as potentially the best point of attack defender in this whole draft class. I think he's remarkable on defense. Even playing off ball, I think he does a great job staying active and aggressive. The offensive side of his game, I think, gets a little overshadowed. While I don't see him as being just a great offensive player in the NBA, I think his ability, especially to drive and kick out to shooters, has been really impressive. Good vision and feel for the game. I'm a big believer in Jamal Shed. Honestly, if I didn't see some of the other evaluations that people have made of him, kind of opened my eyes more to the negative side of him as a player, I think I'd have him higher than this personally, but we'll just have to see what teams are thinking when we get to the draft. My number 6 point guard is Juan Nunes. To start this off, if you haven't watched the No Ceilings breakdown on some of his tape, I would highly recommend. In my opinion, he's the best passer in this draft class. He does lack a little bit physically and athletically for what you'd want from your lead guard in the NBA, but the passing, I think, is pretty undeniably translatable. He can throw it anywhere on the court from wherever he is. Awesome reader of defenses, great feel for the game. He can score a little bit. That will need to improve. I don't know exactly how much upside he has in terms of scoring, but he has definitely shown flashes of being able to shoot as well as finishing with good touch, especially on floaters inside the paint. My number 5 point guard is Carlton Carrington. This is a guy who really broke onto the scene strong this season with his first college game ending with a triple-double. He has kind of cooled off throughout the season, but the flashes definitely stuck around. He's really kind of a do-it-all player, doesn't necessarily excel at anything too crazily, but can do everything pretty well. I really buy the shooting upside. I think he has good mechanics, is really creative on creating his own jump shots, has done a fantastic job creating for others throughout the season. The frame is a little concerning. He will definitely need to add weight and strength, but with him being such a young prospect, I believe in that potential. And if he is able to do that, I think he has a really good chance at ending up as one of, if not the best point guards in this whole class. My number 4 point guard is Tyler Kolek. Long story short, I think this guy is like super TJ McConnell. He's about as much of a floor general as you could be coming into the NBA. Awesome at navigating pick and rolls. His strength is definitely creating for others, but when he needed to for Marquette the past couple of seasons, he's done a great job of creating looks for himself as well. He's, at least at Marquette, he hasn't been a fantastic three-point shooter, but I believe in this improving. I do buy the shot. It has work to be done on it for sure, but I think it's a lot further along than a lot of players that have similar concerns to this. I really believe in Tyler Kolek, especially on offense. Defense will be a struggle at times, but I think having a player as smart, high IQ, overall just great feel for the game is awesome for any team who'd be willing to take a chance. My number 3 point guard is Devin Carter. I think that everybody's kind of on the same page at this point that this is going to be the Miami Heat pick. He's got ties with the organization and really fits quote unquote Heat culture. I think this past season at Providence specifically, he was asked to do a little too much, and that kind of hurt him a tiny bit as a prospect. But regardless, he did a great job of making the most of the situation. He has shown offensive flashes throughout the season, but I think his big calling card is on the defensive end. He's super aggressive, wants it more than about anybody, and I really didn't see much in the tape that I watched of him not playing aggressive on that end. And while that may be concerning at times, I would rather have players being overly aggressive than not aggressive enough. My number 2 point guard is Rob Dillingham. This is a player who I was kind of referring to at the start of this video about how some players that a lot of people see as shooting guards I may have included here and vice versa. I think that the best opportunity for him at the next level would be as the lead guard. He is a great passer, but hasn't done just a lot of creation for others off the dribble. I think that that's really going to improve next year and going forward in the NBA. His offensive strength is definitely scoring. He can score from all 3 levels, kind of one of one in terms of creating his own looks. That was something I didn't think would necessarily translate super well even into college, but it really did. I love the offensive upside. Will need to get stronger, especially for defense, but overall as a prospect, I love him. I think he's awesome, so much fun, and hopefully he will be able to continue that trend at the next level in the NBA. And my number 1 point guard is Nikola Topic. He's got great size, great feel for the game, maybe the best player playing out of pick and rolls in this class. I think overall he's just awesome. He has dealt with a little bit of injury trouble this season, but the more I watch him, the more impressed I am. He's got great touch, great feel for the game, is an awesome distributor. I think in the NBA, he's really going to be able to do a lot more creation for others. And overall, in terms of running an NBA offense, I think he's the best in this class. I don't necessarily think he has a lot of superstar potential, but in terms of at worst being the 3rd or 4th option for scoring, I think he's going to be able to get that figured out pretty quickly. Well, that's going to wrap up my top 15 point guards. Next up here pretty soon is going to be my top 15 shooting guards being posted, but be sure to check us out on Twitter. Check out our website. I will drop a link below. But this is Jace. Thanks for watching Plus Basketball.